Hello and welcome to Hadoop Exam Learning Resources. In this series, we are going to start software architecture. And specifically under this training, we are going to cover domain-driven design. So how to become a software engineer to a great enterprise architect. So one of them is you must know domain-driven design architecture. So let me start with this. So why a software design is needed? Basically, when you start your career as an developer, so you would generally came out from your college and then you do couple of years of your development. At the start you would think of everything as a classes, objects, design pattern and utility classes and kind of thing, correct? So these are objects and methods is combination of all this put into the modules, packages, archival created. This all you think it's a software basically, correct? This is good. Yeah, as a junior developer you should understand this is a software and how to create all these things. But as soon as you complete your couple of years of experience at the start of the career, it is better you get start understanding of the designing of software, because without designing even your small software cannot get successful output. If you really want to create a great software, then become a designer or software designer as soon as possible. Learn the designing concept. In my case, I have been introduced very late, around 10 years later of my work. I was introduced by this software architecture, domain driven design, so which is very late. Usually after 2 years you should start getting involved in all this stuff, and you should understand this, because without that you can never be a lead senior developer or you cannot be a good architect. So you must know this. So that is what how you create a great software. You need to know designing. So just give you an example basically, correct? If I ask you to create a house and give you bricks, cement, sand, etc., without design, would you able to create a great house? No, correct? You can just create four walls and that you can say it's your house. Until or unless you have a great design either on paper or in your mind, then only you would be able to create a good house. So that is what similar thing applicable to your great software as well. So you must know how to design a software greatly. And designing a software is a very complex process based on the, like, which in which domain, how big is the project, what is the complexity of the project. There's many more factor involved which we will learn, correct? Designing is evolutionary. As you say, like house you build it, correct, and you may generally not change much until only interior or everything you change it. But in case of software, it's like an evolutionary. Every few months or while development, even after development, software keep changing. So better you start a good design so you can easily implement the new changes in the existing software. So that is where the good design is very well needed. Without that you cannot enhance your software easily. And any new developer which join your team and try to e- enhance this project or software, it will be difficult for him if it is not a well defined design is being was being used for the development of this software. So that is where the design. So never thought in the first place like you would have a design at the start and you then you would create a project. These kind of approaches previously was taken where people were getting the requirement collected from the customer, then creating the user story. Based on that they are creating UML diagram, and that was eating up initial 6-7 months of the project even before starting your first line of code. So that you can imagine how much loss you have already made it. So you must not spend that much time on the designing. Basically you should try to get your design implemented as uh, quickly as possible. But how that is domain driven design would help you how you can quickly design your software. We will discuss in detail in some time. So as I mentioned here, design can never be final at the first place. It keeps changing, but your software or your design should be able to accommodate new changes. That is very critical, and that is only possible when you follow the some standard designing which is popular, proven in the software world. then only you would be able to do this. So let's first move to the this part we have discussed, but just to tell you, like, this is all things we you would get to know before you start your designing, correct? Or while designing, what is the domain you are working it, what modeling you want to follow, how evolutionary, what design pattern, what agile methodology I'm going to use it, how to acquire the knowledge, what modules I should have. Modules would come later in the project, but this is all your part of your designing. So before going into this, let's learn some terminology. In this session we'll try to cover most of the terminology first, then we'll actually dive into the domain driven design later. So domain, what is the domain? You keep hearing, as soon as you start your journey towards the software development, you must know your domain where you are working it, basically, correct? So domain is a sphere of knowledge where you are working it. Suppose you are working on an insurance project, then insurance is a domain. Insurance is a big domain, correct? Like in insurance, which side of you are working it, like insurance itself has an like creation, various creation of the policies, defining the policies, and even investing that money to in a different market. So this various things are there, so you need to know, like, you are going to work in a particular domain of the insurance as well, so you should know. Similarly, in the restaurant application, if you're building a restaurant application, which we'll take this example in detail later, so restaurant is a domain, like who once this is very easy to understand, like everybody know what is a restaurant, correct? So this is your domain knowledge. If you work in a fixed income trading, so fixed income trading is a your domain, but fixed income itself has a huge domain where rates is itself one domain, securitized product is another domain, then there are other derivative products of this fixed income. Similarly, in equity work, so equity has a like derivative, future options, etc. So in which domain you are working, so you should first define your project belongs to which domain, correct? So that is a domain. In the context of software, it refers to the business or idea that we are modeling it, correct? So that is what we have discussed. Domain expert, what is domain expert here? Domain expert is basically a business person who actually do the business, who understand what he is doing, correct? Because you are developing software for this domain person, he is going to use your software, so that person must be part of your designing phase, like when you design a software. So domains experts help you to find out core of the domain. Core is here, what is core here, I'll tell you in some time. Basically this is very critical term. Core of the domain you need to understand, and that only domain expert can help. A domain expert cannot be an individual or something, there is a collection of the team basically, or collection of the people who would work on this domain. So you need to interact with everybody, because everybody has a different role in that. Domain expert, there's no job title or something like that, correct? Basically the people who use who do the business, and those are your basically stakeholders from the business side, so they are the domain expert. Domain expert will naturally be more focused on the business concerns, correct? They don't care about how to create your software, because they are investing their money to create a software. You are responsible for creating the software. They can explain you the how they do the business, and you need to design that business in your software, and then implement that and give that software as a delivery, correct? So that is what domain expert help. Business complexity and technical complexity, that is a habit of software developer or software engineer to focus on the technology complexity. This is always with everybody until and unless they become a like and or become an expert of designing, basically, correct? So they always thought, like, when somebody explain you some requirement, you in your mind immediately you start creating classes, and how would my system will interact, which technology I would use, what should be my object or something. As soon as domain experts start explaining it, you are creating your technical software as designing in mind, and you were thinking on that, and you thought, like, this is more complex. Try to understand business complexity first, your software complexity would become relatively easy, because you understand your business. Until and unless you understand your business, your software cannot be easy to implement for you. So that is very, very critical. You understand the business with the help of your domain expert. So business complexity is more critical than your technical complexity, because technology is mature enough now. Most of the cases are can be taken care with existing technology as well, correct? Obviously there are like scalability and wherever is needed, so new technologies are getting innovated, but many of them are already available. So think initially with the business complexity, how complex is the business rather than technology complex. Domain driven helps design and modeling business complexity in a simple way. How complex? So the domain driven design came into the picture for the complex businesses itself, correct? And specifically, this was like started domain driven design in the early 2000 only, but the use cases have become more practical now because this microservice architecture, which using Kubernetes and uh, microservices and various technology we created, correct? So that is where like this domain driven design is more applicable. Basically it can be applicable across various technology, sorry, various other as well, like monolithic application, micro like monolithic application can also be well designed with the domain driven design, but specifically it is a good for distributed application or microservice based application. This must be domain driven design. You should do this. That is one of the best way to design your software. Now let's move to the what is core domain. Core domain is the actual domain which or the actual business you are going to implement it, like in insurance, correct? Insurance is a core domain. In a restaurant application, in a restaurant environment, restaurant business is your core domain, correct? Like but in an insurance, let's say if you want to authenticate an user, so that authentication is not a core domain of the insurance, because any application you create, whether in a restaurant application, if you create it, suppose, then also you need a authentication and authorization. Similar insurance application you create, then also you need it authentication authorization. Banking application you create, you need authentication authorization. So basically these are the core domain: insurance, banking, restaurant. But your authentication and authorizations are your not a core domain. You can say supporting domain, or I will come how to differentiate between like what all different type of subdomains. So supporting or generic domain, you it can fall in, but that is your business. This is your focus area basically, correct? This must be the focus. This is where your like you differentiate yourself from the different businesses, correct? If your core is not well designed and you say like my authentication authorization is the best in the globe, but my business is insurance, I work in an insurance company, and you said like this is not well designed but authentication and authorization is best in the globe basically, correct? I have defined it. So but your insurance is not well designed, this is core domain, then your software is a not a good software, because the actual purpose of this software should be this. So this is what you should do. This rather what you will do, you design very well, as much as best is possible you should design it. Authentication and authorization, if you cannot design it, go for buying this software. Why to build your own, correct? There are many software outside world is available, they are expert in authentication and authorization. Similarly logging software you need have. So then why do you want to, you are not going to create a new logging itself, correct? So you would be, so your focus should be on the core domain. So that is what the core domain. For an organization or a department, you should not try excelling everything, and you should not even try it. So that is what here, you should not try like I would write authentication authorization best in the class, I will write logging framework which is best in class, I'll write insurance which is best in class. Why? You need to focus only on insurance. This is available in the market, use this, don't write your own. So that is what here core domain means. Insurance product buy is available in the market but may not fulfill your custom requirement. You want to build it for your custom requirement. Every organization has a different requirement. So that is what here it means. Hence wisely choose what should be part of your core domain. So that is what you have to be careful. Try commit your best resources when you defining team, then try to put your best resources in the on the core domain, correct? So that is what it is. Model, what is model? So model is basically in a software designing is a one picture you create in your mind, correct? Or you draw it basically on a one domain you create it basically. Like so suppose you, if you are creating some software and you are designing it, so this is my basically let's say for example, this is what I have come out with this initially. This is very initial picture. So this is my model, correct? This is the my model which I created. Now model is not a code, first of all. correct? It's not a what you can say class diagram, correct? This is not a this is not UML diagram, correct? So this is very initial. You came in which you like you define it like this is the domain where, let's say, for restaurant domain, my model would be something like this. I would create an order here, I would have a customer here, I would have a reservation on this, I have a payment system and this. So this is my model. Basically this is nowhere directly related to your code, class diagram, UML diagram, correct? So this is what you can implement this model. Once you implement it, this can be basically a your class diagram, your UML diagram. This is the implementation of the model, the class diagram, UML diagram. If you create it, so this is an implementation of your model. So model is not a software, as we discussed, correct? Model is which domain expert can understand, correct? So whenever you create a domain or you speak to domain expert, so they should understand what you are talking about, correct? So you as a like as a software developer, when speaking to a domain expert, both should understand what exactly this domain is saying. So that is what the domain here. So model is not software. Model represent our understanding of the domain, correct? So this is an understanding of the domain. So that is what the domain is come. Obviously you need to put on the paper this all this stuff what you discuss in it. So and you need to write it out, but this is not a software, not a UML diagram, not a code or nothing. The software is an implementation of the model, correct? We discuss is you can implement your model as a document, diagram, as we discussed, correct? So that is one. Now moving to next important point which you need to understand is cost center versus profit center, economic of node designing. So if you have been in the industry, like most of the places you have seen, like IT is considered as a cost center, correct? So this is a not a good in now like basically specifically companies who are having their in-house development, they should avoid saying like this is a cost center, this is a profit center, because they are making your processes manual to automate or making it faster, more delivery, faster delivery, you can do better businesses. So that is where this become your profit center. If your company is saying it is a cost center, then this is not good. They need to change it if they are doing in-house development. Suppose I am buying a software from the outside world for my use, then I can say this is a cost center, which is I'm paying it, and basically that should be fine. But when you're designing software in-house everything and you are talking to domain expert and everything, so then it's a basically I would consider the profit center. Now imagine a company like JP Morgan don't have an IT system. Imagine a company Morgan Stanley does not have an IT system. Imagine a company like what else you can say, Ola, Uber, this company, do you think they can be a successful company without an IT or high profitable company in this world? Not at all. So they should say their IT center not a cost center. This is a profit center basically, if I would say. They how they calculate the profit, that's a different thing basically, but this should be a profit center, not a cost center. So they should start avoiding saying this cost center. If software models are not well designed and they are considered as a cost center, they can eat up the profit from business, and business think you by putting pressure on software delivery without thoughtful design can be a huge loss for a business, correct? So that is what I have discussed here. So that is what it is very critical they should start considering in this world. IT is not a cost center anymore, and if they are doing in-house development, they must rethink if they are saying it's a cost center. It's a big statement, but that is what I thought as well, because without IT this kind of businesses cannot survive, not at all. Design versus technology. Developer tries to solve every problem using technology. This is the problem with our software engineer, like everybody, correct? Like they think every problem can be solved using technology. That's right, but you need to design it very good, then only you can use the technology effectively to solve your problem. So thought for the design first, then use for the, then thought for the technology, what technology you want to use it. That is very critical. This should be strictly avoided, at least for senior developers. Senior developers should not think for the technology before design. They always think for the design first. This is the first priority they have to give it. Now, business logic we have discussed, that is part of the domain. Developers should note that business logic must not be part of the user interface. When you design your system, make sure business logic is not part of user interface. Keep it aside. Just user interface should be user interface. There should not be any business logic. If you are doing persistence, like storing in the database or cache or everything, correct, keep it. There should not be any business logic in both the layer. Your business logic should be code part, correct. So there should not be in this, there shouldn't be any business logic. Now moving further, overgeneralize. That is the, again, people who are great on the object oriented concepts, they understand what is overgeneralized meaning, correct. So you create or thought everything in advance, like in my future requirement, that is good, but over generalizing is also not good. Like generalizing means what, you are creating interfaces for the future requirement and abstract classes, correct. So that is what your generalization means. Don't do over generalization. So basically, while knowing the design, you can have a good generalization in place. So that is should be avoided. This is specifically um, then rather than actual concrete business needs you should have in place. Basically, tight coupling, one service is directly calling another service, then you have a tight coupling between these two services. If I need to change anything on this service, then this service also needs to be modified. That is called tight coupling, and this is a disaster for your software maintenance. Avoid this altogether. And how you can do this, better design in place can help you to do this. Bad design. Alternative to good design is what? Always bad design. Nothing else you can have it. So you have to have a good design. Fixing a bad design is more costly than spending time on the good design. Only advantage I see for bad software design is more need of software developers to maintain that software. So this is good employment, good for employment if you have a bad design, but it's a huge loss for a company as well. So that is what, like, but this is again a bad software engineers and kind of thing. So this, we should not follow this, but bad things are bad only. Okay, they cannot be good. Knowledge acquisition, this is not free. That is what, this is very expensive. Most of the time this is a very challenging for a developer to work with the basically business or domain expert. They generally don't spend uh, time with the developer, correct. And that's where the BA roles is also introduced to for this, basically, correct, business analyst role. But this is very critical. If they are not able to spend time with the developer, they would have a slow delivery on the software, bad design on the software, and everything developer has to do is based on assumptions, correct. So not at a goal good, sorry. So that is why I said knowledge acquisition is not free. It takes time. You need to interact with the domain expert. You need to request, get it, how you can interact, because without collaboration with the domain expert, you cannot have a good design and good software in place. Okay, so that's all about in this session. Now after, in next session, we will actually start diving on the domain driven design and then discuss more. Thanks for watching, and I hope you like this session. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe it. Thanks. I'm stopping now.